Last time on the Playmates Star Trek Retrospective.
The mixed series got more interesting. Starfleet Academy showed up when no one asked it to. First Contact made some baffling choices. Anniversaries were celebrated, and the Inner Space series was practically charming.
And now, the continuation.
Personal log, Commander Soundout. I was doing my routine checks to prep for the next segment of the historical log. Unfortunately, I discovered something that would derail everything we were about to accomplish.
Red alert, we have an infestation. Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to part 5 of the Star Trek Playmates Toys Retrospective. We're starting to hit the weird point in the line, where in 1996 we had the total kind of blunder of the First Contact lineup. 1997 sees a lot of other problems, which we'll get into. It's honestly kind of hard to talk about because we're a line that had started so great and done so many good things starts making really weird choices, and that's essentially where we're at. Now, a little bit of housekeeping from part 4. I actually was able to find 2 more commercials that relate to previous parts, and that was because Playmates Toys started uploading old commercials to their YouTube channel. For example, this one on the transporter.
Emergency! All systems down! Abandoned ship! Transporter ready! Beaming down Guinan! All life systems failing! Geordi LaForge's now being transported! Hurry! Warp beaming down! Ship breaking up! Transporter ready for data! That's not data, it's lore! Wait a minute, what's going on? Now all systems normal? What's happening? Oh, you, of course. Testing us again.
Star Trek The Next Generation. New action figures and transporter from Playmates.
And then this commercial for my beloved Inner Space series.
Now the universe has just gotten smaller. Command the Starship Enterprise with bridge and minifigures. The shuttlecraft Goddard manned for special missions. The Klingon bird of prey opens for action. The medical tricorder ready to handle any emergency. And Phaser with off-world adventure. All the Star Trek excitement you can hold in your hand. Star Trek The Next Generation. Inner Space mini playsets with minifigures from Playmates.
But now with that out of the way, let's get to 1997. First order of business, the mixed assortment. This has been the line for over a year now. It's been the packaging style we've been expecting. It comes to an end. We had the last waves of the mixed series in Series 3, and there's some weird choices, but some really cool figures and some very necessary additions to the collection. So let's take a look with the mixed series, Wave 3.
Much like last time, I don't own every single figure, nor do I own every accessory, and the accessories aren't a major focus, otherwise these videos would be 3 hours long. For figures I don't own, I'm using images from the awesome website Wixaban. Check them out for all kinds of information on the Playmates Star Trek line, as well as other Star Trek toy and merchandise lines. It's a fantastic resource.
Series 3, Wave 1 of the mixed series is the same packaging you've seen to this point so far, nothing really to comment on. The back of the packaging has made it just the 1997 figures from this wave and the next, and they all come with widescreen trading cards. No more space gaps. First up, we have Captain Kern. Now this is Worf's brother, who was portrayed by the wonderful Tony Todd, and he was a character that appeared on The Next Generation as well as Deep Space Nine. And this is specifically his Deep Space Nine appearance from the episode Son of Moog, and that was pretty much it. It's a really nice figure because he is one of the unique molded Klingons, which we certainly never got enough of, and his accessories make sense for who he is and what he did in the episode. Plus, it pairs really well with that DS9 Worf that we got last year, because now we have kind of that complete episode with these two brothers who are the Sons of Moog. Captain Benjamin Sisko in this wave is a Season 4 appearance. Bald head, beard, it is the Sisko that I think most people would associate with the character. And looking at him here, he looks okay. He's kind of strange because he's not a unique figure, he is mostly a new head sculpt. Said head sculpt has an okay likeness, but in general he is using the Chakotay body from the Voyager wave, but with of course a Benjamin Sisko head. What's interesting is he is shorter because of this than the previous Sisko figure, which is kind of a problem, but it's one that I'll overlook for the moment. Because overall, he does look good with the rest of his crew for DS9, and this does make a nice cast shot for the later part of the show, which is more generally received as the better half of the series. Seska as a Cardassian is pretty much just as it says. It is Seska, but in her true Cardassian form, or something like that. Very strange character from Voyager, but one that was prominent enough that I think she did deserve 2 figures. And this one is pretty nice. Completely new sculpt, which is great, and I think it's overall a better head sculpt than the previous Seska. Accessories-wise, nothing she comes with she can hold, so the base is the only thing that she really has. But, like I said, it is a nice upgrade to the previous Seska, as this is the appearance we saw her in more than the Starfleet uniform version. Also, you can pose her next to Chakotay so she can taunt him with a baby that may or may not be his. Tom Paris Mutated, a very infamous figure from a very infamous episode, that being Threshold, the episode where Tom Paris was mutated into a salamander alien, kidnapped Captain Janeway, and they had salamander babies together. I wish I was kidding, but that's the episode, and while considered one of the worst episodes of Voyager, this is also considered the worst figure in the Playmates line, which I don't agree with at all. Because while this was a dumb thing that no one asked for, this figure actually isn't bad. He's got a full range of articulation, the likeness is pretty good. He has accessories specific to the episode, the phaser he used on Janeway, the salamander babies, that's technically 3 pack-in figures when you really think about it. In addition to that, the head sculpt looks like a mutated Tom Paris, and I don't see what the problem is. Outside of being from an episode that's not very popular and not being a figure that anyone actually asked for, in terms of an action figure, he's not the worst, he's in fact one of the better ones, which is weird to say. But the worst figure in the line is forthcoming, and we'll talk about that later in this video. The Gorn Captain from the TOS episode Arena is one of the most iconic Star Trek alien designs, despite appearing only in 1 episode of TOS, a brief appearance in Enterprise, and a possible appearance in Strange New Worlds. And honestly, I love the Gorn look, and Playmates did a great job replicating the figure here, because it just has that same vibe of what the Gorn should be. It's got the details, it's got the look. I really have no complaints. It doesn't have bicep swivels, so I have 1 complaint. Accessories-wise, it's got a cool base, and it's got accessories that were specifically used by Kirk to fight the Gorn, and some of these are incredibly tiny, and I wonder how they pass safety laws. And of course, you can set up Kirk fighting the Gorn on your desk, and just do, you know, a little diorama scene, or you could be more extravagant like I was. The last figure of the wave is Dr. Beverly Crusher in a Generations uniform. This figure was limited to 10,000, which was probably a good thing because this isn't a uniform she ever wore. Once again, reusing parts to make something that didn't exist. In Generations, she wore the normal TNG uniform, as you can see in this screenshot, and that's it. Otherwise, it is the Janeway / Seska / Torres body with green shoulders and Beverly's head. I don't see a reason to own this, and the fact it was limited just made it easier not to. This wave was kind of a nice mix. You had something from each show. 2 from DS9, 2 from Voyager, 1 from TOS, 1 from TNG. It's honestly what the mixed series really should always be. Mixed Series, Series 3, Wave 2, packaging's the same. Back of the packaging does not show us any further figures than what was in the previous wave in this one, because this is the end of the Mixed Series. The Mugatu here is probably known as the Mugato to most, and it's kind of a cool figure. Once again, just like with the Gorn, it appeared in Private Little War, and that was its main appearance until later Star Trek series such as Lower Decks. And the Mugutu here actually has to have its spine installed, which is a first for a Playmates figure. But overall, the Mugutu here is just really cool looking. It's a neat looking alien design. The fur textures are pretty nice. It's in a hunched position, which fits the actual look of the Muguto from the actual episode. The Mugoto's accessories are pretty neat. You have a stand, you have all this extra stuff that nobody can hold, and it can face off against Captain Kirk even if it has limited articulation. Overall, if you're looking for a Muguto figure, this is the one to get. Captain Kirk in his environmental suit from the Tholian Web. This figure's pretty straightforward. It's Captain Kirk in his environmental suit from the Tholian Web. So not much else to say. It is a nice figure because it is uniquely molded, which is always appreciated, and it is still fully articulated. Let's get that little helmet on him because I think that really adds to character here. Overall, I mean, it looks like the environmental suit from that TOS episode. I really don't have any notes beyond that. He of course has the normal Starfleet base that you'd expect, and he does look nice when you put him with the normal Captain Kirk because, well, they do use the same head sculpt, but it is two different versions of the same character. Professor Data from All Good Things is the next All Good Things figure in the lineup. He does look quite good. Brand new mold outside of the head, and he just looks fantastic head to toe. Looking at his head sculpt, much like the previous Data, it's a decent likeness overall, and this one is essentially the same head sculpt with a streak of gray in his hair. He's got the comm badge base based on the All Good Things comm badge, which I really like. And looking at Data, it is the same head sculpt, I think, just that extra gray added. Plus, he looks really good alongside the other All Good Things versions of the characters we've gotten so far. The only one we're missing is Captain Picard. Continuing the trend of iconic characters from TOS, Harry Mudd. Now, he actually appeared in 2 episodes, and I'm really glad he actually got a figure because, honestly, Playmates was the only line that would go deep enough to make a Harry Mudd figure, but he turned out pretty great. Looking at him, uniquely molded figure, lots of paint detail, and looking at the likeness, it actually is pretty spot on, all things considered. He does have the normal stand, of course, and some accessories that his hands can't hold because they're molded weird. He matches up well with Kirk. In fact, he is taller, which is accurate, and I'm glad that that attention to detail was done. So the last figure of the wave, Dr. McCoy in dress uniform, much like Dr. Crusher in her Generations uniform that wasn't her Generations uniform. This is a limited to 10,000 figure, pretty straightforward. McCoy in a dress uniform, a neat release to go with the Kirk and Spock that already came out. This final wave of the mixed series is definitely overwhelmed with TOS characters, with Data being the only TNG character, and that's kind of a shame because it is the last of what would be a mixed assortment, but with TOS never having its own wave, I'll give it a pass for now.
And now the mixed series has gone away. It's no more. But the concept of mixing all the Star Trek shows into one specific packaging will continue in the form of Warp Factor, where we're going to have specific waves, not only specifically themed, but specifically designed to have numbers and number of characters. They make it very apparent what is in each wave, which when doing a historical thing makes my job 100 times easier. So on that point, Wave 1 of Warp Factor, in fact, is based on a specific episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine made for the 30th anniversary in 1996, Trials and Tribulations. Trials and Tribulations had Tribbles, which we've recently gotten some kind of an infestation on because there's Tribbles everywhere I look these days, and it's just getting out of hand. And unfortunately, when it comes to the toy line, it also gets out of hand because they decided to design the Triple Tribble Scratcher game, which would allow you to scratch Tribbles off a card until your Tribbles would give you prizes, which includes being in episodes and stuff. It's very overwhelming. But this entire wave is based off of one episode from DS9. Let's see how it turned out.
Play the Star Trek Triple Tribbles game. You may win a Star Trek multimedia home theater right in your own living room, or you could win one of thousands of other great prizes. Look for game pieces in specially marked packages of Playmates Star Trek toys, Interplay Starfleet Academy CD-ROMs, and at participating Dairy Queen restaurants, or write for a free game piece. Then see if you have a match with a grand prize winning symbol to be announced during the season premiere of Deep Space Nine. Watch for your chance to win.
The Triple Tribbles game was obviously a big thing for Playmates. They put cards in pretty much every one of their toys, and I thought, hey, I got a ton of these, let's scratch one off and see what happens. So here it is, folks, the Triple Tribbles game, which is essentially a scratcher card. So these were packed in with a lot of toys, not just the 4.5-inch figures. They were with the 9-inch, they were with like Action Fleet maybe. There's not Action Fleet, Strike Force. There's a lot of stuff, and particularly here is 2 cards that came out of the same package. This is with the Swarm Alien, I think. So I have a bunch of these. I've never scratched off any of them. I thought, why not scratch off some Triple Tribbles game for this video? So here's the prizes you could have won back in 1997. So the grand prize was a Starfleet or Klingon multimedia home theater command center built into your living room by set designers from Paramount Pictures. I'm jealous, I would love that. 3 first place winners get a trip to Hollywood in an authentic Starfleet uniform. 5 second place winners get a piece of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine set. 500 third place get Star Trek toys and book sets. And that is, that's an interesting photo here because it's a Beverly Crusher on a Warp Factor style card back. And she's in, oh, I can zoom in, can I? She's in the First Contact Onward Gray uniform, which is a figure that would not ever release in the US. And in fact, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, it was a mock-up of some kind. 1,000 4th place winners, Starfleet Academy CD-ROM, and 5,000 5th place winners win a Deep Space Nine comic book. See rule number 6 for second chance drawing details. So here's all the rules. I'm not going to read these. Apparently you can get $10 cash back from Interplay for buying the Starfleet Academy CD-ROM game. Yay. Anyways, so specifically, you have to match specially marked Playmates Star Trek toy packages available at your local retailer. Watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine the week of September 29th to reveal the grand prize winner, and collect 2 Playmates Star Trek toys proof of purchase and 2 points to earn yourself a photo of yourself in a Tribbles episode. So, match, watch, collect. I don't know if I can actually tell if I would have won anything, so we're just going to scratch these off with this nickel, because this show doesn't have the budget for quarters, and I don't even know if this will scratch. Oh, there we go. Alright, so we're going to scratch, and scratch, and scratch, and scratch, and scratch. And this one says green. Because Tribbles are totally green, guys, right? Like, that's... Have you seen a green Tribble? There's that. Let's see here. So if we watched, we would have found out the grand prize winner would have been something. I don't know which one we got here. Let's see. Either this coin is bad or this stuff does not scratch well now years later. God, what is it? 1997 was a heck of a long ways away. So let's just... So we scratch it off and it says Space Station and it shows DS9. Come on. Scratching. There we go. Alright, so you can see, there it is. Space Station. Don't know if that means anything. And then the bottom one. Oh, this is so hard because these are so old. And scratching, and we got a picture of Quark, and it says 1 point. I don't know what any of this means. Match specially marked Playmates packaging available at your local retailer. Like, is that the actual like toy packaging, or what? I don't quite comprehend that. And then I mean, I guess you would have had to watch. I don't know if anybody's got any record of this, but if you do, hit me up. I'm curious. I'm going to leave this one for historical purposes, because I did not feel that was worth my time and yours. But hey, we went through it together, and that's what's important. After recording that segment, I took a look at some packaging for the video and realized, oh yeah, that's what it meant by specially marked packaging. I got a green Tribble, which I'm assuming means I won nothing. So nothing has changed. With the new series comes new packaging. I really like the Warp Factor packaging. It's really kind of cool. I love the use of colors, and I love the use of the angular, sort of curved nature of the overall design. I like that it does say Warp Factor Series 1, specifically calling out this wave of Warp Factor, and this will continue for all the future Warp Factor waves. I also do like the specified ship, depending on what show that the character is from, because it does give a uniqueness to the packaging. On the back, you can prominently see all the figures in the wave, including the one that you're going to be purchasing, and it also does mention what episode it's from, in addition to the character notes. You can also see on the packaging that there's a Paramount Toys logo. I'm not really sure the whole history of the Paramount Toys branding, but I'm really curious to look into it one day. Now, this wave did feature a lot of variants in its packaging. The biggest one you can see in front of you, or can you? Because the only real difference is that one of them includes soft cloth Tribbles, where the other one doesn't. All the figures in this wave include these plastic Tribbles in colors that Tribbles never were, because they're molded with whatever colors of the accessories, and the cloth Tribbles are the equivalency of the pom-poms you'd see at a hobby store. They're nothing too fancy. So the first figure in Warp Factor Series 1, serial code-wise, is Chief Miles O'Brien from the episodes Trials and Tribulations. This is essentially Miles O'Brien's head on top of one of the TOS bodies, I think specifically Chekhov. It's not too fancy, it's nice looking. I'm not opening him though. This figure was limited to 10,000, much like previous waves having limited figures, except this one was definitely not in every case assortment. In fact, here's a picture of a fresh case that definitely didn't have it. And in fact, unlike some other figures that may be quote-unquote hard to get, This guy actually goes for a lot of money, so the closest you're getting for this one is in the package. Because while I have one, I do not want to open this thing. It is too rare and too hard to come by, and I don't really have a place for it on my display. So you get to see Miles O'Brien in the packaging, because I ain't taking this one out. Our first normal figure in the wave would be Captain Benjamin Sisko, also from Trials and Tribulations. This is essentially Sisko in a TOS uniform, but more on that in a moment. Overall, I do like the fact that we did get figures based on this episode, because it's an episode I really enjoy. It was really cool how the DS9 crew got to interact with the TOS crew through some crazy technical wizardry. And in fact, actually having figures based on this episode is really cool, and there is, some gaps here and there which we'll discuss, but I did really appreciate the fact that these were even made in the first place. Accessories-wise, in addition to the Tribbles and normal Starfleet stuff, he's got his base, which is actually a TOS base, which is really appropriate. And for some reason, his serial number on this foot is painted gold instead of white, and I don't know if there's any significance to that. And lastly, yeah, this is just essentially action figure math. Sisko head plus Sulu body equals Sisko from Trials and Tribulations. Next up, we have Jadzia Dax from the same episode, Trials and Tribulations. Once again, very much just taking a DS9 character, putting them in a TOS uniform. Now what's kind of neat about Dax is that being a unique individual herself, she actually gets a unique head sculpt that we hadn't seen on previous Dax figures, because if they used the previous one, it wouldn't have looked correct at all. In fact, looking at that new head sculpt, it's honestly pretty good. It's got all the detail you'd expect, and the hairstyle is really well replicated, which I can definitely give them credit for. So while she is reusing the body from Janice Rand, she's not reusing the head sculpt or even the face sculpt from the previous Jadzia Dax figure, and that's pretty cool. Next up we have Odo. Now Odo in this episode was wearing sort of a different outfit than a Starfleet uniform, so this actually is a new figure, and overall it's pretty cool that we got this. Now sadly we didn't get Worf, who also was in the episode, and it's kind of strange because he's the only one missing. Looking at the figure itself though, it does have some limitations. There's no bicep swivels, there's no waist joint. That being said, reusing the Odo head sculpt we had from the original release of Odo, not a bad idea. This figure comes together quite nicely, and especially for the fact that, he's a little bit taller than the previous Odo, which kind of makes it funny because he is a changeling. He could change his size if he really wanted to. Dr. Bashir rounds out our main DS9 characters who appear in TOS uniforms, and he looks good. I mean, there's really, not much to say about these. The thing I did like, unique head sculpt, just like with Jadzia, to change the hairstyle to make sure it matches the episode. Very, very cool stuff, and the overall likeness is pretty awesome. It's not so much old Bashir head plus Sulu body equals new figure, but having that new head really gives it some distinction. I'm also really impressed at how well these figures blend in with the other TOS figures. They really do look like they're supposed to be there, which was kind of the point of the episode and the way that the episode did that, so I'm glad the figures are able to replicate the coolest part of that episode. So the last figure in the wave is Captain Koloth. Now, Captain Koloth appeared in the original Trouble with Tribbles episode of the TOS era, but he was not in Trials and Tribulations, the DS9 episode. They didn't use any footage of him. It's weird because the packaging distinctively calls out that he was in both, which he is not. And that is quite a problem. But it is kind of a nice way that they got an excuse to make a Koloth, and he is the only original series Klingon that we would get in their original series look. That being said, the likeness isn't amazing. It's kind of generic. It's there. It's a Klingon-ish. But it does look nice with Captain Kirk at the very least, and they can square off as they would. So overall, while I like this wave and I like the theming of one of my favorite episodes of DS9 and Star Trek in general, the unfortunate factor is there's too many of these out there, especially because these came a year after that episode aired. And what I mean by too many is somehow in my collection, I've got 3 carded Siskos, 3 carded Jadzias, and 2 loose figures of them. They're very available and they're very common. This happened to another toy line, DC Universe Classics. We had an entire wave based off the Blackest Night comic event and featured a bunch of looks for characters that already existed, but these looks were specific to a single issue of a comic. And that wave sold really poorly, was overstocked to try to meet demand, but came too late after the event for that demand to be met in the bubble, and it caused the downfall of the line. Will that be the same for this Tribbles wave in Star Trek? Sadly, yes.
So Wave 2 of Warp Factor is a bit of a mix because it's not based on a specific episode. It's really all over the place, and a lot of these figures are kind of statue-like, which is just where we're at this point. But that being said, even though the triple wave is done, the triple card game thing comes back, so that we still have Tribbles showing up even when there's no Tribbles in the wave, nor are they accessories still. Because I guess with 1997, Tribbles was the name of the game, even though this episode of DS9 that this thing is based on aired in 1996 for the 30th anniversary of Tribbles.
So moving on to Warp Factor 2, the actual packaging is pretty much the same as what we saw in Warp Factor 1, except now in the corner it says Warp Factor Johnny's Price. Warp Factor 2. Also, the backs are different, no longer feature the Tribble game coding thing, so even though there's game cards included, there's no way to know if you won a prize. Kicking it off, Sisko as a Klingon. This is from the episode Apocalypse Rising, and it is Benjamin Sisko as a Klingon. But it does look like a new mold head to toe, which is pretty cool, honestly, and I'm glad to see that. So next we have the Ilia probe from Star Trek The Motion Picture. Now, this was Ilia after she was captured by Voyager, and honestly, was kind of surprised to see this figure in the lineup. Interestingly, on her package, her collector's edition number is on the side of the packaging because her feet are too small to put it there. But honestly, it's kind of cool that Ilia even made it into the line. Unfortunately, she's basically a statue and her articulation's pretty limited, but the overall figure is sculpted nicely. The likeness is pretty okay as well. I think it's not the most amazing thing, but honestly they did pretty good with it, all things considered. In addition to her Starfleet action base, she comes with the completed version of the Voyager probe that you could build with the classic movie assortment from back in 1995, and of course she makes a good companion to the rest of them. It's just a shame that we couldn't get Scotty, Chekhov, and especially a William Decker to go alongside Ilia. Lita joins the lineup, and I'm really glad to see that because she's honestly one of the important DS9 characters for many reasons. She was someone who actually meant a lot to the show in the overall scheme of things, especially with her relationship with Rom. And honestly, the figure is limited articulation, but she does look really nice, and while she is slightly pre-posed with one arm, I think it really does work for the character. The likeness overall, it's not too bad. I think that the hair is a little softer than what we'd expect from this outfit of Lita. Accessories-wise, she does have a Bajoran comm badge stand, which while she's not part of the Bajoran militia, it does fit with her Bajoran heritage. And she can hold bars of Latinum even if she is a little bit more limited in articulation, which is really good. She also comes with a Dabo wheel, which I can't find for the video, which makes me sad because that's one of the coolest accessories that she could have come with. Overall, she pairs really well with Rom and Nog, and especially pairs well with the entire Deep Space Nine cast and guest cast. The Swarm alien from Voyager is another alien I really like. It's one of those full bodysuit aliens, much like the Gorn, that gives me more of a tokusatsu vibe than just a normal Star Trek vibe, and that's always super fun. Honestly, looking at the figure, it's really well sculpted head to toe. It's not lacking any articulation, which is a positive at this point in the line, and looking at the likeness, it just really does look like the suit from the episode The Swarm, which was kind of a really fun episode of Voyager. He comes with the same display base as the Gorn, which kind of looks like an explosion effect. Is this a tokusatsu connection? Am I looking into this too deeply? The Swarm alien does come with two guns that they hold really awkwardly and not well. And while you could pose the Swarm alien fighting Tuvok, it really does feel more at home fighting Kamen Rider Black, especially with all the silvers and grays and really alien-looking design. Next up, Captain Beverly Picard from the final episode of TNG, All Good Things. In fact, Bev here is the last of the All Good Things figures. It only took 3 years, but I'm glad that they finally did complete the set. And she actually is pretty nice. I like the uniform design a whole lot, and it's nice to see it here. And she has a great likeness overall, and really no complaints. She does look terrific. Has a normal comm badge base as well as normal medical Starfleet stuff, and yeah, completely new sculpt from the previous Beverly Crusher, or the first Beverly Crusher in this case, and it is a new head, which is nice to see. Putting her alongside the other characters from All Good Things in that possible future timeline, it's nice the set was complete after 3 years, and the fact that Deanna was dead in that future timeline just to create tension between Riker and Worf has always bugged me, and is the only blemish on otherwise a really great episode. Now around this time, there was a couple Spencer Gifts exclusives. This first one is Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax in her Starfleet dress uniform, which is actually, I believe, the only female officer to get a dress uniform, and that's actually pretty cool. This was limited to 7,500 units, so it is a little bit more harder to find, or else I'd probably own it because of the uniqueness. And I like the accessories she comes with, because those are pretty awesome overall. The other exclusive is Security Officer Neelix, which is actually one I have because I thought it was actually kind of cool. You got a Neelix in a uniform, which is a thing that happens periodically in Voyager. Specifically, the time I most remembered it was Year of Hell, which is the most relatable title for a Star Trek episode, and it honestly was kind of neat to see Neelix in a uniform because he had been part of the Voyager crew for an extended period of time. Naturally, he does come with the normal accessories like the action base and Starfleet stuff. And speaking of that original Neelix, this one is much taller, using a different body mold, but it works fine when you put him with other figures. The sad part is the yellow is painted bright yellow as opposed to the darker gold as on the other operations uniforms, so he doesn't quite match the rest of the crew as distinctively. And yeah, when you put him in a lineup, Neelix in his uniform does stand out because everybody else that's wearing gold has a deeper, darker color to it. But overall, it is cool to have Neelix in a uniform and sort of matches the others better. This wave of warp factor is pretty cool. I do like the variety that was on display. Ilia and Lita being sort of statue-like is okay because of the designs that they have. They're not normal Starfleet uniforms. And it's nice to have the characters, even if they are minimal articulation. It's just nice to have them in the lineup as opposed to not having them at all.
So Wave 3, the last wave of 1997, is absolute crap, and we're going to get into that because it's just not great. But the one thing I can say is there isn't any Tribbles with this wave. I spoke too soon.
The packaging for Warp Factor Series 3 is the same as the previous two, except now it has a 3. The first figure in this wave is Mirror Spock from the episode Mirror Mirror. This is technically a different character, and this is technically not a great figure. The unfortunate problem with Mirror Spock as a figure is that as we go through and looking at things here, he doesn't look quite right. I think the costume is fine, the bodysuit is fine, but, well, I think his hair is too dark, his beard is too thick and too dark, and he has trouble with accessories. So while, you know, it at first glance looks like Mirror Spock, it looks nothing like Leonard Nimoy. He comes with an agonizer and a removable knife, which are probably the two iconic Mirror Universe accessories, but he can hold neither of them because his hands aren't molded correctly. He has a Starfleet action base, which doesn't work because he's from the Terran Empire and they had different emblems. And when you look at Spock next to the normal Prime Universe Spock, they don't look like the same person. So at least if it wasn't going to look like Leonard Nimoy, it should have at least looked like the previous Playmates Spock head. The following segment contains spoilers for the 1967 episode of Star Trek, the original series, known as The City on the Edge of Forever. You have been advised. Here's Edith Keeler from The City on the Edge of Forever. Now, while an iconic episode and while an iconic character in that episode, this figure is the worst thing the line ever produced. I honestly think so, because I don't even think it's an action figure. While other statue-esque figures have existed, Edith here is one hunk of plastic that doesn't do anything. And I mean, literally does nothing. You can see that she has a decent enough head sculpt, but the rest of the figure is where the problem lies. Because she comes with a Starfleet action base and a bunch of cooking accessories, classy, and there's nothing she can hold because, look at her articulation. Her head moves, one arm bends, the other can't move because the position it's in, and no matter how many times I've tried to work it, does not turn, and her legs slightly adjust on this flat piece of plastic that doesn't look like an actual action figure. This is a hunk of plastic with a couple pieces that happen to move due to production things. You can put her with Kirk, even though Kirk's in the wrong outfit. That'll somehow get remedied later. Pretty much the only thing this figure's good for is getting hit by a truck. You know, Playmates was mapping out the Warp Factor series thinking, what are the essential characters we haven't done yet? They thought, what if we just, I don't know, finished the set of the Starfleet Academy figures and took away their coolest feature being the CD-ROMs? Here's 3 more of them. First is Cadet Deanna Troi. Once again, just like the other cadets, brand new figure, brand new design, brand new head sculpt even. Cadet Data is the same Data head sculpt on a different body where he looks like he's in tactical gear, ready for combat. And then Cadet Beverly Howard Crusher is wearing a jumpsuit. It's randomly got pink in it, and she has a brand new head sculpt. I'm just gonna say it, this wave sucks. Edith Keeler is barely an action figure. Mirror Spock doesn't look like Leonard Nimoy or Spock at all. And we have 3 cadet figures that we really didn't need. That those could have been made into other characters, especially since they were all unique molds. That's the most frustrating part about it. This wave sucks.
That's it for 4.5-inch figures. There was only 29 this year compared to 43 of the previous year, compared to like 60 of the year prior. It's really shrunk in the lineup, but that's it for the 4.5-inch. So of course, just like always, there are ships and roleplay, but this time there's less of both than there's been.
The first of two ships from 1997 is the Romulan Bird of Prey. I love the box design on this one. I just like the angles, everything about it, including like the logo for the Romulan Bird of Prey. It's really cool. And then the other one is the USS Defiant, because it wasn't there at the beginning of DS9, they got it later. It actually made it out before the line started collapsing completely, and that's impressive for one tough little ship. Going into our roleplay, we have Captain Pike's Starfleet laser pistol from the Cage pilot. Kind of a cool, unique item, because I don't think many companies make things based off the Cage, and I'm happy that Playmates made it. Next up, we have the Klingon, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, knife. This is the famous Klingon knife that they always pull on people and it springs open dramatically, and the toy is essentially that. While, looking pretty good, you can spring it open and it makes a bunch of weird noises. Other than that, the actual knife itself is a good size, good weight, looks pretty good, and I like the weathering detail. And it's actually kind of a cool item. Next is the Starfleet Medical Tricorder, which is definitely a TNG-esque design that is being held by definitely a TOS sleeve. And lastly, we have the Starfleet Phaser from Star Trek V and Star Trek VI.
So, well, sadly, there's not a second batch of Inner Space series, and that bums me out because I love the Inner Space series as much as I talked about in the previous episode. We got the Strike Force. Now, Strike Force, if I'm going to be totally honest, Strike Force felt like, oh, Star Wars came back with the special editions, and they did Action Fleet, and they did Micro Machines, and they did these playsets, and they had battle packs, and vehicles, and heads that turn into playsets. And so Star Trek decided to do battle packs, and vehicles, and heads that turn into playsets. Be different. And unfortunately, we lost Inner Space series for the really underwhelming Strike Force. And I think that while I only own one of these that I bought simply for this video, I can illustrate why Strike Force is inferior to Inner Space. And on top of that, they had the gall to include Tribble game tickets in it. More Tribbles!
So we're just going to get to the comparison right away. Here is the Strike Force USS Enterprise D. It's 2 figures, a stand, and a small Enterprise. And I do mean small, because when you actually open it up to the bridge, it's got one chair, not the captain's chair, but just one chair, and some slight sticker detail. It's not that exciting. It does look nice up on the flight stand, which I will give it credit for, and it's kind of neat that you can stick the other figures in the base. However, when you have this coming after this, you start to wonder where it went wrong. Because while the Strike Force Enterprise is definitely smaller and more accurate, the inner playset part is so much better on the Inner Space Series one you can see on the right. That one has a full bridge lineup versus the one chair and a little area on the Strike Force. That being said, the Strike Force does do saucer separation, which is a pretty neat trick, and it does redeem it in my eyes for owning it, but it is nothing compared to Inner Space. Running down the Strike Force lineup, ship collection playsets, these are the ships in the class of the Enterprise D. There is a Cardassian warship with Gul Dukat and Garrick. There is the Enterprise D with Picard and Riker, which I already briefly showed you. The Klingon Bird of Prey with Valkyris and Commander Krug. A Ferengi Marauder with Damon Box and Jason Vigo. Really interesting character choices. And a Maquis fighter with Chakotay and Torres in Maquis outfits. Next up are the head playsets, literally called head playsets. The Klingon Great Hall with Lieutenant Worf, Kempek, Gowron, and a Klingon warrior. The Borg Temple with Lieutenant Commander Data, Lore, Hugh Borg, and a Borg soldier. The minifigure series, which are battle packs essentially. Klingon Warriors, Starfleet Away Team, which is a mix of TNG, DS9, and Voyager. The Borg Assimilation Team, and the Ferengi Commerce Team.
The 9-inch dolls continue. So, just like before, the Collector Series is still going, and it wraps up as well around the time the Mix Series ended. So let's take a look at those.
So for the Collector's Edition 9-inch dolls, we have a Romulan Commander, Miles O'Brien from DS9, Hikaru Sulu, Pavel Chekhov, Jadzia Dax, Q in his judge robes, Benjamin Sisko in a dress uniform, and Kira Nerys.
So just like with the 4.5-inch figures, the Warp Factor series branding comes to the 9-inch dolls, which actually kind of gives the whole toy line a unified look, which I can actually really appreciate. And in fact, yet again, even if they have nothing to do with the episode, they include Tribbles. Sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they're cloth, But sometimes you just get Tribbles with characters like Chakotay, who I don't think ever has met a Tribble in his life.
So before we probably look at the packaging and all that for the warp factors, I did want to share one of the ones I own, that being Odo. For some reason I've had this Odo figure since I was a kid. I don't really know why exactly. And yeah, he's been around a while. His computer thing's gigantic, his comm badge stand is massive. He was in my toy collection for a long time, and now here he is in a retrospective on a toy YouTube channel. Also, there was a packaging version of Odo that came with giant mutant Tribbles, because that's just how this line went. Also in this wave is Commander Chakotay, available in non-Tribble and Tribble variations, as well as Lieutenant Tuvok. Wave 2 of the 9-inch doll warp factors includes Captain Janeway, Lieutenant Tom Paris, and Dr. Julian Bashir. 9-inch doll exclusives include Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Commander William Riker, exclusive to Spencer's Gifts, limited to 6,000, even though the boxes say 15,000. And then limited editions of Captain James T. Kirk and Mr. Spock, limited to 6,500, in their appearance from the city on the edge of forever, exclusive to KB Toys.
So clearly the 9-inch action dolls are successful because in 1997, Playmates introduced 12-inch action dolls. Conveniently at the same time, another Star brand introduced 12-inch dolls of its characters. I'm not saying they were desperate and feeling like they needed to compete, but I don't know, these look very similar. That being said, the 12-inch dolls will continue into 1998 and 1999 and actually outlive the 4.5-inch figures, so they're just going to be everywhere. But at least these 12-inch dolls are nice collector's pieces and don't include needless Tribbles.
So the 12-inch dolls initially were part of the Masterpiece Captain's Edition, which come in these really great boxes, as we see with Captain Jean-Luc Picard here. What's really cool about these is they're not just, fancy boxes. They are limited editions of 10,000. And opening one up, you can see inside that you get a book, as well as a certificate, as well as, of course, the 12-inch action doll. Now, I'm not going to take these out because these are really nice packaging, but these were intended to be a whole line, and ultimately, it was just Jean-Luc Picard. And can you guess what the other one was? Of course, the other one is Captain Kirk. What a surprise. But these are pretty nice. Now, unfortunately, if you look at the back of the boxes, you can see what could have been. As they were intending to make Pike, Sisko, and Janeway, it just never came to be, sadly. Now, looking inside Kirk's box here, I will say that I did open part of it because when I got this, it didn't have the plastic covering. So we can take a look at the very nice Certificate of Authenticity, which is a really cool piece. It does actually make these feel legitimately limited edition. And then also the book, which is the same book as the one that came with Picard, just with a cover of Kirk as opposed to Picard, and I imagine it would have been the case with the rest of them. But it is a nice book going over the history of the captains and their ships. Also, here's a quick size comparison between the 9-inch Odo and the 12-inch Captain Kirk.
So, just because they hadn't run out of ideas yet, cold cast resin. That's a thing they made, and it's weird.
The cold cast resin statues of the Playmates Toys Star Trek line are known as the Latinum Series. The first one is a 12-inch Borg Queen. Yes, we got a 12-inch cold cast resin statue before a proper action figure. We also got a Jean-Luc Picard, also from First Contact, wearing the vest and carrying the phaser rifle. They pair up nicely, I think. Rounding out, there is a 6-inch scale diorama of the Borg Queen with Data from that slightly uncomfortable scene from First Contact with the skin graphing. I don't like skin graphing in anything.
So that was 1997, a year with too many weird things, too many random stuff, too many terrible figures, too many just awful things, and too many Tribbles. Just too many Tribbles. But ultimately, it was sort of the turning point where this line starts tailing downhill. We have one more video left in this retrospective series properly. Part 6 will be covering 1998, 1999, and 2000, because those three combined make an entire episode's worth. Yeah, it's kinda rough. But we're gonna look at it, it's gonna be a fun time, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when part 6 is coming. I'm planning on getting it out a lot sooner than I have the others because it's gonna be an easier episode to do because a lot less to talk about. But on that note, leave a comment down below and tell me what you think was the weirdest thing they put out in 1997. Personally, cold cast resin. That was a weird choice. It just was. But leave me your personal thoughts down below. And otherwise, have a great day. Be sure to check out Hero Club at hero-club.com for Star Trek news and more. Awesome graphic designer on Twitter at darkclaw643. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, live long and prosper.